But did you also sing at this on Wikipedia? It says you sang at Rupert Murdoch's wedding.
I did. Yeah. Sang at Rupert Murdoch's wedding. That was when I was 12 or 13. Fuck. So Rupert Murdoch's wedding to Wendy Dang, and that was another weird one.
Yeah. I mean, you can't have known at 12 who you were, what this was. I mean, for any of this, even the president, you can't really have known who
no
President
idea.
Bush was.
Like, no context. No context for who he was. No context for how important he was. And it was quite early on in my career as well.
Yeah.
I think my album came out in the November, and I think I was singing in his wedding the next summer.
Right.
So it was pretty swift, a pretty swift turnaround, and. Yeah, he asked me to sing Pia Jesu, which we informed him was a requiem and probably shouldn't be sang at a wedding.
Well, only got himself to blame then.
So I think that I was, and afterwards, because again, I mean, I'd had one session of media training, which was, you know, very, very sweet and innocent, but actually did not prepare me in any way, shape or form for dealing with the media. And I was just, as I still am, very open and honest, and will just speak, you know, and so I did as well afterwards about Rupert Murdoch's wedding, and in part I think that's why he was so annoyed, or why he might have targeted me later.
Yeah.
You know, sort of the whole News Corps thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, they targeted everybody, but because I was talking about the fact that he dropped the ring and he was like this really old guy and his wife was really beautiful and young and lovely. And that he'd asked me to sing a requiem, which was weird. So I just sort of spoke on it from my very young 13-year-old perspective. And I think he took massive umbrage.
Well, I mean, you know, I can understand it's really awful when someone gives away loads of personal details about you, isn't it? So you can understand why he was upset.
Quite.
You didn't get paid. You got paid, according to Wikipedia, it says you didn't get paid. The payment was that he would give you good publicity, which is like an insane thing to do.
So my manager at the time said, "Look, this is what the offer is. The offer is £100,000 to sing 3 songs at this old geezer's wedding." Which, of course, me and my mother, Cardiff, like, Megan, yes, please! And, or good press.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, clearly £100,000, that's insane. Like, that's the most amount of money, like, you know, it's so far beyond anything I was getting paid at the time, you know. It was just like, that is clearly the one. And he was like, no, it's not the one. Right. That is not the one. Like, as your manager, this is what we're doing. This is what we're taking. So we sort of protested, but were told in no uncertain terms, this is the one that you take.
Yeah.
So we did, but clearly the manager got all of the good press, and we got fucking shit on from a great height for years and years and years.
I mean, there might, you know, how long was that going to last as well? Obviously, didn't last very long.
Not long at all. I mean, it was literally because then when I sacked my manager, I had a big court case with that manager then. And that's when the press turned.
Right.
And that's when the press turned. And first of all, they turned on my mother. And they made this whole story about how she was so pushy and how she was the Welsh dragon and that she was just like really aggressive and angry and just this really poisonous woman, which wasn't the case at all. She was a fierce lioness fighting for her daughter.
Sure.
And, you know, I was basically the guy who was my manager at the time, I was just like, if I have to work with him another day, I will not sing another fucking note. And that's what I said to everybody that I was working with. And so they were like, okay, fair enough. And so that's what was going on.
But it sounds like both of you were like incredibly ballsy. You know, like most people wouldn't. I mean, but it's also the reason. You know, the appeal of you is exactly that you are who, you know, you're very much you, and you say what you feel, and you're not. You know, there might be an element where you have to play the game a bit, but you're not really playing the game. So it's you know, and that's what makes you appealing, I think. And you know, you've been through a lot of shit. I hope you get to sing Pia Jesu at Rupert Murdoch's funeral.
Me too.
And I hope they pay you pretty soon.
The irony would be so delicious. and also happily. I would happily do that.
Will you do it for free? Or
I would do it for free.
Okay.
I would pay to do it.
Okay.
But I also would do it with great reverence.
Yeah, that's good.
Honestly, in a way.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's ever going to die, but
This is true.
We'll see. So look, I mean, it all did. I mean, it's as weird as the 1980s and 1990s were. I think it's, and you know, this is a little history lesson about attitudes towards women, to children.
Yeah.
That and you know, it does speak a lot of where the country was, I suppose, at that time. That, you know, as you were turning 15 to 16, there was a lot of excitement in the papers about that, which is like, seems so bizarre. And so like the Daily Star had up against being angry about Chris Morris's Peter Geddon sketch.
Yes.
On the same page, I believe. Yeah. They had a picture of you going, she's a big girl now, chest swell.
Yeah, Charlotte looking chest swell was the headline.
When you were 15.
Yeah, when I was 15.
I mean, it's that's and the only
It was in the noughties, though. I'm not that old. I was born in '86.
In the 90s, yeah, in the 90s. So it's, you know, it's sort of incredible that you know, in that recent memory, that it would be that.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't remember. I know was it the Sun was counting down the days to.
Yeah, I mean, that's
birthday?
never been verified because they couldn't find so much evidence.
Right.
It's so weird how they just lost all of the evidence. Yeah, I mean, clearly it was a very different, well, I say very different culture. I don't know if it was that different. Now I think that things are just a little more insidious. And, I mean, of course, like, things are better. Things are progressing in terms of the feminist cause, in terms of well, actually, not necessarily. Sorry, it's me arguing with my own brain. In terms of adult supremacy, which is definitely a big thing, and I think that, you know, one of the something that will start to come to light in the next couple of years of just how that plays out, actually, and how that's a really big problem for society, that we are very systematically completely conditioning our young people to be like us, essentially, and sometimes in quite coercive ways, which I feel, it's one of the most prickly, I think, and it's one of the most difficult for us as human beings to accept and take on board, because it's about our darling little uns, and it's about our parenting, and it's like the most personal and the most sort of, it's the thing that you really don't want to fuck up. Yeah, of course, we're all fucking it up all the time. But yes, so I do think we've come a long way with those things, but in another way, you know, it's almost like whack-a-mole, isn't it? Like, there's so much extremist, crazy shit popping up left, right, and center. So much, and that misogyny is just turned into something else, which is more. It's more in a guise, if you will. It's almost like got that, like, some sort of like invisibility, glamour around it, which is more difficult, because back then it was very upfront.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it was very upfront. It was very visible. It was very it was very immature. Yeah. You know, it's very teenage boy. Whereas now, do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I mean,
there's, you know, it's so bizarre to think those. I mean, it explains a lot about the country. Those were the attitudes. So, like, that's why when you look back, you go, how could all this stuff happen with, you know, Jimmy Savile and all this sort of stuff? And you go, well, actually, because the bigger picture was everyone was going, yeah, all right, you know. But there was. You know, so everyone was sort of encouraging it, and to the extent, I mean, it's so unbelievable, and I lived through it, but it's unbelievable to me that someone would take, like, the whole thing about you're this sweet girl who sang hymns, and to, you know, that, I know pop music is often sexualized, and it's great if people are in control of that themselves, men and women, but, like, to deliberately sort of sexualize a child, it sort of seems unbelievable to us now, but we, you know.
I don't know if it is that unbelievable, because actually, and this is where I talk about, and I don't mean to self-aggrandize it any way, shape or form, but in terms of my life being quite archetypal in ways. And so, you know, it is, you know, it's a deeply misogynistic thing to do, actually. And also it was quite commonplace, I would argue. You didn't have to be a successful person in the public eye for that to be happening. That was happening everywhere, to a lot of other women in this room, of all ages, will have experienced something like it, where, you know, your sort of your burgeoning sexuality, your innocence, your sensuality is somehow twisted and turned and made to be something that's shameful or unpure, or you know what I mean? And I feel like that is it's a deep wound in the culture, actually. So what was happening to me was really, the way I look at it now, more of just like the flagship show. The flagship show of some of the deeper rooted ills of society, I suppose. And I feel like that my life has been a bit like that the whole way through, that I feel like I am a bit of a litmus test, and I do sort of draw out the shit.